brought to you by Charity Mobile, the phone company that supports life and family. 5% of your monthly plan price goes to your favorite charity. Buy the way you believe at CharityMobile.com and use promo code TRADITION.
Today we wrap up Pascendi Dominici Gregis by Pope St. Pius X. And in this installment, you will hear his directions to bishops. At the time that he wrote this, modernism was being propagated among the priests at various priestly conferences or congresses that they were holding. He explicitly bans this practice without the permission of the bishop, and that bishops must make sure that certain things aren't being discussed at these conferences. You also see him talking about the creation of a sort of society of vigilance, essentially. A mechanism to make sure, to keep an eye on things in the church, to assist bishops locally to make sure modernism was being stamped out. As you can imagine, not much came of this. Partially because already many of the bishops had embraced modernism to some degree. This was in 1907, okay? Modernism has been a problem in the church going back more than a century. In fact, almost 2 centuries, judging by some of the things his predecessors wrote. Bear that in mind, trying to figure out how we got to where we are today. We have already mentioned congresses, and public gatherings as among the means used by the modernists to propagate and defend their opinions. In the future, bishops shall not permit congresses of priests except on very rare occasions. When they do permit them, it shall only be on condition that matters appertaining to the bishops or the apostolic see be not treated in them, and that no motions or postulates be allowed that would imply a usurpation of sacred authority, and that no mention be made in them of modernism, Presbyterianism, or laicism. At congresses of this kind, which can only be held after permission in writing has been obtained in due time and for each case, it shall not be lawful for priests or other dioceses to take part without the written permission of their ordinary. Further, no priest must lose sight of the solemn recommendation of Leo XIII. Let priests hold as sacred the authority of their pastors. Let them take it for certain that the sacerdotal ministry, if not exercised under the guidance of the bishops, can never be either holy or very fruitful or respectful. But of what available, venerable brethren, will be all our commands and prescriptions if they be not dutifully and firmly carried out? And in order that this may be done, it has seemed expedient to us to extend to all dioceses the regulations laid down with great wisdom many years ago by the Bishop of Umbria for theirs. In order, they say, to extirpate the errors already propagated and to prevent their further diffusion, and to remove those teachers of impiety, through whom the pernicious effects of such diffusion are being perpetrated, this sacred assembly, following the example of St. Charles Borromeo, has decided to establish in each of the dioceses a council consisting of approved members of both branches of the clergy, which shall be charged the task of noting the existence of errors and the devices by which new ones are introduced and propagated, and to inform the bishop of the whole, so that he may take counsel with them, as to the best means for nipping in the evil the bud and preventing its spreading for the ruin of souls, or worse still, gaining strength and growth. We decree, therefore, that in every diocese a council of this kind, which we are pleased to name the Council of Vigilance, be instituted without delay. The priests called to form part in it shall be chosen somewhat after the manner above prescribed by the censors, and they shall meet every 2 months on an appointed day under the presidency of the bishop. They shall be bound to secrecy as to their deliberations and decisions, and their function shall be as follows. They shall watch most carefully for every trace and sign of modernism, both in publications and in teaching, and to preserve from it the clergy and the young. They shall take all prudent, prompt, and efficacious measures. Let them combat novelties of words, remembering the admonitions of Leo XIII. It is impossible to approve in Catholic publications of a style inspired by unsound novelty, which seems to deride the piety of the faithful, and dwells on the introduction of a new order of Christian life, on new directions of the Church, or new aspirations of the modern soul, on a new vocation of the clergy, on a new Christian civilization. Language of this kind is not to be tolerated either in books or from chairs of learning. The councils must not neglect the books treating of the pious traditions of different places or of sacred relics. Let them not permit such questions to be discussed in periodicals destined to stimulate piety, neither with expressions savoring of mockery or contempt, nor by dogmatic pronouncements, especially when, as is often the case, what is stated as a certainty either does not pass the limits of probability or is merely based on prejudiced opinion. Concerning sacred relics, let this be the rule. When the bishops who alone are judges in such matters know for certain that a relic is not genuine, let them remove it at once from the veneration of the faithful. If the authentications of a relic happen to have been lost through civil disturbances or in any other way, let it not be exposed for public veneration until the bishop has verified it. The argument of prescription or well-founded presumption is to have weight only when devotion to a relic is commendable by reason of its antiquity, according to the sense of the decree issued in 1896 by the Congregation of Indulgences in Sacred Relics. Ancient relics are to retain the veneration they have always enjoyed, except when in individual instances there are clear arguments that they are false or suppositions. In passing judgment on pious traditions, be it always borne in mind that in this matter the Church uses the greatest prudence, and that she does not allow traditions of this kind to be narrated in books, except with the utmost caution and with the assertion of the declaration imposed by Pope Urban VIII. And even then she does not guarantee the truth of the fact narrated. She simply does but forbid belief in things for which human arguments are not wanting. On this matter the Sacred Congregation of Rites, 30 years ago, decreed as follows: These apparitions and revelations have been neither approved nor condemned by the Holy See, which has simply allowed that they be believed on purely human faith, on the tradition which they relate, corroborated by testimonies and documents worthy of credence. Anybody who follows this rule has no cause for fear, for the devotion based on any apparition, in as far as it regards the fact itself, that is to say, in as far as it is relative, always implies the hypothesis of truth of fact, while in as far as it is absolute, it must always be based on the truth, seeing that its object is the persons of the saints who are honored. The same is true of relics. Finally, we entrust to the councils of vigilance the duty of overlooking assiduously and diligently social institutions, as well as writings on social questions, so that they may harbor no trace of modernism, but obey the prescriptions of the Roman pontiffs. Lest what we have laid down thus far should fall into oblivion, we will and ordain that the bishops of all dioceses, a year after the publication of these letters and every 3 years thenceforward, furnish the Holy See with a diligent and sworn report on all the prescriptions contained in them, and on the doctrines that find currency among the clergy, and especially in the seminaries and other Catholic institutions, and we impose the obligation on the generals of religious orders with regard to those under them. This, venerable brethren, is what we have thought it our duty to write to you for the salvation of all who believe. The adversaries of the Church will doubtless abuse what we have said to refurbish the old calumny by which we are traduced as the enemy of science and of the progress of humanity. In order to oppose a new answer to such accusations, which the history of the Christian religion refutes by never-failing arguments, it is our intention to establish and develop by every means in our power a special institute in which, through the cooperation of those Catholics who are most eminent of their learning, the progress of science and other realms of knowledge may be promoted, under the guiding and teaching of the Catholic truth. God grant that we may happily realize our design with the ready assistance of those who bear a sincere love for the Church of Christ, but of this we will speak on another occasion. Meanwhile, venerable brethren, fully confident in your zeal and work, we beseech for you with our whole heart and soul the abundance of heavenly light. So in the midst of this great perturbation of men's minds from the insidious invasions of error from every side, you may see clearly what you ought to do and may perform the task with all your strength and courage. May Jesus Christ, the author and finisher of our faith, be with you by his power, and may the Immaculate Virgin, the destroyer of all heresies, be with you by her prayers and aid. And we, as a pledge of our affection and of divine assistance in adversity, grant most affectionately with all our heart to you, your clergy and people, the Apostolic Benediction. Given at St. Peter's, Rome, on the 8th day of September 1907, the 5th year of our pontificate, Pope Pius X. Now that's Pope St. Pius X's landmark encyclical Pascendi, the ending paragraphs of it anyway. Moving forward, I will do another encyclical starting in the next couple of weeks. I don't know which one yet, but I will be doing something by another preconciliar pope soon, another really long encyclical that is best done in small pieces, in the same kind of schedule as I did this one. That way we can really understand these important documents, because these documents were never meant to be read aloud to begin with, and they're usually written to other bishops, hence why they're so hard to grasp for so many people. But in small, bite-sized pieces, they tend to be much better. But I'm curious, what do you think of all of this? Have you been paying attention to the Pascendi series for the last year or so? I will try to make sure to put this into a playlist for you as people have requested, so remind me in the comments. I'm recording this several days before you get it. But let me know what you think of all this in the comments. If you found this presentation of Pascendi useful, Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So does sharing this on social media. That helps as well. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.